Imagine you are in a place where the market is not just a place to buy vegetables and fruits, but a real arena for finding love. And wedding traditions can surprise even the most sophisticated tourists. Welcome to Vietnam. Here, most people only imagine street food, picturesque rice terraces, and that very chaos on the roads where motorcycles rush like a flock of birds. But here's a surprise. Vietnamese people have unusual customs, such as wife catching among the Hmong people and husband catching among the Churu people. Don't believe it? But this is reality, where weddings are not just a formality, but real performances filled with emotions and cultural meaning. So why do Vietnamese people go to the market not only for food, but also for romantic encounters? How do traditional rituals that are passed down from generation to generation reflect the cultural heritage of this amazing country? And what makes Vietnam one of the safest and most hospitable places on the planet? In this video, we will reveal the veil over Vietnamese wedding rituals, talk about the love market, and show how deep history and living traditions continue to influence the daily lives of people here. Vietnam is not just a country with stunning landscapes and street food. It is a real palette of ethnic diversity. Imagine 54 ethnic groups, each with its own language, clothing, and traditions. It's like a huge cultural market where you can find everything from bright fabrics to exotic dishes. For example, mountain peoples such as the Hmong are famous for their stunning embroideries and colorful skirts, which look as if nature itself has painted them. And so, imagine you are walking through the market and suddenly a woman in a bright national costume approaches you, offering local treats. It's not just food, it's part of their culture, part of their life. Every time I see Vietnamese people in their traditional clothes gathering in a circle to perform a ceremony, I realize it's not just a ritual, it's an expression of their identity. Each group has its own customs, and many of them may seem strange to us, but that is precisely the richness of Vietnam. Here, weddings, for example, can be real. Theatrical productions where each element has its own meaning. So when Vietnamese people talk about their culture, they are not just proud of it, they live it every day. Isn't it interesting to observe how these traditions intertwine with modernity, creating a unique atmosphere where old and new go hand in hand? Now let's talk about the Hmong people and their rather controversial tradition of catching a wife. Yes, you heard right. In some regions of Vietnam where the Hmong live, guys have the opportunity to kidnap a girl they like. This can occur right in the market or even in her home. At first it seems like some wild ritual from horror films, but in reality this custom has its own nuances. If a guy decides on such a bold step and kidnaps the bride, she is not defenseless. She has a chance to refuse the marriage. In this case, she is returned home, but only after 3 days, and this time, as you understand, is not just for nothing. During these 3 days, the groom must convince the girl that he is a worthy partner. He will have to show all his abilities to win her heart and not just take her like in some medieval fantasy. This approach really shows that women have the right to choose, albeit in a very unusual form. But let's not be fooled. This also raises questions about how much such a practice respects the rights of women. It is quite possible that for someone it is just a game, and for someone a real drama. And when you look at such guys, are they having fun in this process, or are they just following the traditions? Anyway, this tradition shows how much approaches to love and relationships can differ in different cultures. It's not just a ceremony, it's a whole performance where everyone has their own roles. And oddly enough, it still works in the 21st century. Now let's talk about how girls are courted in the Hmong people. You can't do without musical instruments here, and of course, without romance. In their traditions, everything looks like a fairy tale. Men, possessing a certain level of courage and creativity, can arrange real concerts under the windows of their chosen ones. A flute in the hands of a guy is not just an instrument, but a whole harp of feelings on which he plays his feelings. And if you think that all this happens against the backdrop of a sunset with pink clouds, then you are probably wrong. Yes, it's romantic, but only up to a certain point. In parallel with the music, they give girls gifts that can range from simple flowers to some more significant things. But here's an interesting point. To understand whether a girl agrees to courtship, you need to wait. If the gift remains with her for 3 days, it is a sign that she accepts the courtship. Imagine this situation. A guy comes, gives her something cute, and then just waits. This reminds minds some game of survival where you don't know if your gift will be returned or become part of everyday life. So courtship among the Hong is not just flirting, it is a real strategy where every move is carefully thought out. But here's the question, how romantic is it really? Or is it just a habit in which young people lose their individuality? In any case, this approach to courtship will definitely make you think about how differently you can build relationships in different parts of the world. When it comes to weddings of the Hmong people, a real show starts here, and not in the sense on television, but in the sense in life. These events are held in the spring when nature blooms. And believe me, it's not just a formality, it's a real cultural event that makes you forget about your routine and immerse yourself in the atmosphere of the holiday. Imagine clothes that look at you as if they are alive, bright with embroidery that tells the stories of ancestors, and rituals that sometimes look as if you have entered another world where magic and reality intertwine. And of course, you can't do without festive wine. It flows like a river, but here's the question. How sincere is all this? Or is it just a way to show who is who in society? And by the way, Hmong weddings are not limited to just dancing and singing. There are also bright ceremonies here that can sometimes seem strange to a person from another culture. For example, a ritual when the groom must prove his strength by passing through certain tests. It's like a test of endurance, where love is tested not in words, but in deeds. In the end, this is what the essence of the wedding is. Not only uniting two hearts, but also serving as a kind of exam for the groom. So if you think that a wedding is just a beautiful ceremony, think again. The Hmong show that it is a whole world full of traditions and expectations where each element has meaning. And now let's take a look at the world of the Churu people, where traditions seem to have mixed places. Here, imagine, it is not men who propose, but women. Yes, you heard right. A woman herself chooses her man, proposes to him, and then gives his family a dowry. It's not just a symbolic gesture. It's as if you bought yourself a new phone and immediately activated it, but only with a guy. And don't think that this is something frivolous. A woman taking a man to her home as if signing a contract for a life full of obligations and expectations. She doesn't just buy him, but actually puts him on a pedestal, showing that he is worthy of being part of her family. This means that he will not just sit and wait for food to be brought to him. He will have to actively participate in the life of the family and fulfill his duties. And here's the question. How do you like such a system? On one hand, it gives women more power and freedom, but on the other hand, doesn't it seem to you that this is also a kind of catching? This approach makes you think about the role of gender in society and about how traditions can change the perception of love and relationships. All these rituals and rules create an atmosphere in which a real struggle for attention and recognition appears. In the end, what is more important, love or social obligations? The Churu show that even in such traditions as marriage, you can find a place for irony and challenges, and it's damn interesting. Now let's move on to Sapa, where the love market is not just a place, but a real arena of passions. Every Saturday, crowds of young people gather here ready to fight for the heart of their soulmate, or at least for the opportunity to chat with the past. It's like a weekly championship for finding love, where instead of medals, there are phone numbers and promises to meet again. You understand, it's not just a market, it's a real exchange station of feelings and emotions. Here you will not be offered banal flowers or chocolates. No, everything is much more complicated here. Young people come in stylish clothes, trying to impress, as if preparing for a casting for the lead role in a romantic comedy. But don't be fooled by appearances. Behind every smile, there may be a whole story full of hopes and disappointments. And here you are, standing in the midst of this bustle, watching someone look with trepidation at their ex, and someone with hope for future love. But tell me, doesn't it remind you of a market where the main lots are feelings and experiences? Here you will not be sold a single emotion without bargaining, and as cynical as it may sound, there is no place for romance in this process. It's more like a game of chess where every move is thought out in advance. So if you decide to immerse yourself in this atmosphere, be prepared for the fact that love here is not sold at a discount but at a high rate. Sapa opens our eyes to how much traditions change in modern society and how love becomes part of a big game in which, alas, sometimes those who are not sincerely in love win, but those who know how to play by the rules. Forget about standard fares and boring exhibitions. At the love market in Sapa, music and dances are not just a background, they are the main attribute of this spectacle. Here, guys with flutes and harmonicas create a real symphony of passion, calling beauties to the stage where feelings and rhythms intertwine in a single flow. Imagine a guy leaning over an instrument, blowing out a melody so sweet that even stone hearts begin to beat faster, and girls, like real queens, answer them with dances, swirling their skirts in a whirlwind of emotions and smiles. It's not just dances, it's a whole story told through movement, where each step is a step to the heart, and each glance is a promise. And yes, there is no place for shy natures here. The music that is calling plays, and only the bravest go out to this arena to demonstrate their talents. The very process of interaction here resembles something between a casting for a talent show and a romantic date. It looks as if each participant is preparing for a serious test where success depends not only on skills, but also on charisma. Feelings here are served with rhythm, and music becomes the language in which everything is spoken from young to old. And of course, as in any game, some may just have come to admire this spectacle, while others, on the contrary, are eager to start real relationships. So if it seems to you that everything happens spontaneously in this market, think about it. Everything is thought out to the smallest detail here, where every movement, every chord is part of a carefully constructed strategy. Vietnam is not just an exotic country with stunning landscapes, it is a real oasis of safety in Asia. If you believe world ratings, the crime rate here is so low that it seems even criminals decided to take a vacation. Tourists getting here feel at home and not in vain. You can walk along the streets of Hanoi or Ho Chi Minh City without fear that someone will whistle behind your back or try to take away your bag. This country knows how to create an atmosphere where instead of fear, you get a sense of freedom. In Vietnam, even night walks do not cause panic, and this is worth taking note of. Of course, as in any other country, you need to be careful and not leave your belongings unattended, but in general, you can relax and enjoy the atmosphere. In addition, the Vietnamese are a people who perfectly understand that good service attracts customers. So don't be surprised if you are greeted with a smile and sincere interest. And if you suddenly get lost, don't hesitate to ask the locals. They will gladly help you even if your Vietnamese leaves much to be desired. People here are friendly and open, and this only adds positive emotions to the overall impression. In general, if you are looking for a place where you can safely wander through markets, taste street food, and communicate with locals, Vietnam is your choice. When it comes to Vietnamese people, it is impossible not to note their natural hospitality. This nation seems to have been born with a smile on its face. If you don't believe it, just try to go to any cafe or small shop. You will immediately feel at home. The Vietnamese seem ready to share with you everything they have, whether it's a bowl of fragrant pho or just interest in your story. By the way, communicating with locals is not just a pleasant pastime, it is a real find for the traveler. You are not just a tourist, you are a guest, and this feeling permeates the whole atmosphere. I remember once getting lost in the narrow streets of Hanoi. I stumbled upon a small street market. The saleswoman, seeing my confused expression, approached me, not just pointed the direction, but herself led me several blocks, telling me about life in this area. This is not uncommon for Vietnam, and it is these moments that make traveling around the country so memorable. And yes, they know how to feed, so that even gourmets will squint with envy. Street food here is not just food, it's culinary art, and the Vietnamese are true masters of their craft. So if you want not only to see the country, but also to feel its spirit, communicate with locals, try their dishes, and soak up the atmosphere, their goodwill and openness make even the most ordinary moments unforgettable. Women in Vietnam are a real force of nature, and no attempt to ignore them will be successful. Here, they are not just housewives, but full participants in all processes from the kitchen to business. More than 26% of leading positions are occupied by women, and these are not just numbers, but a reality that commands respect. Vietnamese women know how to balance between traditions and modern ambitions, like gymnasts on a beam. On the one hand, they honor family values, take care of children, and support their relatives, and on the other hand, they strive for career growth and self-realization. Working on their own business or holding high positions, they sometimes look as if they have an extra hour in the day. They manage to do everything, shine at work, and create comfort at home. Personally, I was amazed when at one of the local markets, I met a woman who not only sold fresh vegetables, but also ran a successful business in their supply to restaurants. It would seem like a simple saleswoman, but in fact, a real businesswoman with a clear plan for the future and whole ambitions. And there are many such examples. Vietnamese women know how to work and at the same time preserve their traditions, and this is what makes them amazing. Their hard work and strength of spirit are something worth studying and striving for. In this country, women do not just play a role, they set the tone and influence the future. And if you think that a woman's place is only in the kitchen, then you should definitely look into Vietnam and reconsider your views. Vietnam is not only amazing landscapes and famous cuisine, but also a country with a rich cultural heritage where ancient traditions still play an important role in people's lives. Here at the crossroads of the past and the future, you can see how local customs intertwine with modern realities. For example, did you know that Vietnamese weddings are not just a celebration but a real theatrical production? People can spend days preparing for this event and then surprise guests not only with outfits but also with rituals that take us to the depths of centuries. And as for markets, they are not just places for shopping but real centers of cultural life where you can feel the pulse of the city and talk to local residents. Which of the traditions surprised you the most? Would you like to visit the Love Market or witness a Vietnamese wedding? Write your opinion in the comments. Support the video with a like and subscription so as not to miss new exciting stories about the world.